So hello everyone, hope you're well, nice to see you. So here in the monastery, I just looked at the thermometer, it's 11 degrees outside and it went up to 14, maybe something like that. But it was cold and rainy this morning. Birds seem happy, they're coming back. I saw the beaver. What else did I see? 2 pairs of nesting herons, but maybe I spoke about that earlier. And right now we're organizing our year after our winter retreat. So we're planning work projects and we have the tent frame up. We have a marquee tent that we use through the summer and cleaning up after winter, all the grit and putting the snowshoes away and the snow shovels away and the boots away. It's very complex living in a cold climate, not like Singapore. You just have your same flip-flops all year. We must have, like, each of us probably has 4 pairs of footgear at least. So that's more complex, but it's all well here. I think the most exciting thing for us is that we will have a groundbreaking ceremony. Is that date fixed yet?
No,
20th, yeah, roughly on the 20th of April of this month, and then the Digger Arnotts is our company that does our foundation work. They'll come in and start making nice holes in the ground for the foundations of our new Dhamma hall. So we've been, as I keep saying, we've been planning this for a long time, and Venerable Siri Meadow is back from Thailand. He's sort of spearheading this project from the Sangha side. We have an architect, we have a builder. So it's pretty special. It's a special time for us. Yeah, so otherwise, nothing much new. Monastic life isn't very exciting, by the way. Right? Is that true, Tim? Anyway, shall we do some meditation? Let's do, say, half-hour meditation. And I'll give some instruction. And then use some time to be quiet, go to stillness, and then a Dhamma talk after. So please take a meditative posture. Right. So for half an hour, try to make a determination to be in the present moment, trying to let go of thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future, but also being very patient, because this is natural for the mind to be producing thought. So the present moment, really awakening to the present moment. So how do you feel sitting here? And a good way is to start with sound. So listen to sound. And don't emphasize the sound, emphasize the listening. So irrespective of the sound, the quality of sound, there is listening. Be with that, be that listening. The body, what does the body feel like sitting here? Bodily feeling. So emphasize the feeling rather than the quality of the feeling. The very aspect of knowing bodily feeling. So you might feel hot or cold or comfortable or uncomfortable, but there's just the knowing of bodily feeling. Know the mood of the mind. You might feel peaceful. Know that. You don't need a label. But know the mind has a mood, doesn't it? Peaceful, agitated. So there's the inner atmosphere, the outer stimuli. Memories coming and going. So this is the way things are. Bring attention to your belly. Now, throughout our daily activities, we collect a lot of stress. So one really good way to observe the accumulation of stress is at the belly. So allow your attention to dwell at the belly and establish that receptive kind of awareness, where you're just allowing the bodily feeling to be what it is, but you're localizing your attention at the belly. So what does it feel like? Now put a lot of attention into the out breath and let the out breath relax the belly. And then on the in-breath, don't rush the in-breath, keep the belly open. Welcome the in-breath. Let the out-breath go all the way. Don't rush the in-breath. On the out-breath, let the out-breath, let your shoulders and hands and arms relax down into the belly on the out-breath. On the out-breath, let all the facial muscles in the neck, shoulders, arms, hands, sink down into the belly. Don't rush the in-breath. Let the belly go really open. So in this kind of meditation, you're not really trying to achieve anything or get anything, but you have a simple exercise. You're noticing what your body feels like. And then you're noticing, well, what if I do that? What will be the result? Skillful, pleasant, good, bad. It's more like an experiment rather than a desire to get something. And when your mind starts thinking, you feel all the energies kind of in your forehead, in your temples, tension in your face. So when you notice thought, don't try to get rid of thought, but you just go to the out breath and just let your face relax, your shoulders relax, your arms and hands relax, right down to the end of the out breath at the belly. And just be very patient. And then see, is this helpful? Is it not helpful? Do it like an experiment. Again, the thinking mind is very powerful, and you don't want to get rid of it, but you do want to notice the thinking mind is creating some kind of pattern of worry or whatever. And then just very mindfully, really, with wisdom, move to another sense base, the body. So thought is a sense base, the mind. And then the body is a sense base. So you're just shifting your attention rather than trying to get rid of thought. This is very important. So that requires patience, but also a kind of intelligence that, okay, there's thought, but where's the body? And how does the body feel? So that attention is applied through intelligence and wisdom rather than kind of reaction to thought or the negative attitude. And so patience is really, really important.
Good evening, Luang Por.
Hi, Shinzing. How you doing?
Yes, I'm well, thank you.
Okay, nice to hear you. See you.
Nice to see you. We'll now request for Dhamma talk. Brahmacaloka Dipati Sahampati Katanjaliyan Divarangaya Chata Santi Dasata Parajaka Jatika Dese Dhamma Anukampi Mampajang.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Hello, hello, hello. Hope you're all well, free from COVID. During this winter retreat, I think I mentioned it last time, we we've been reading from Luang Por's biography written by Ajahn Jayasaro called Stillness Flowing. And it's a big book. We have a digital copy in our various websites, libraries. So if you don't have a hard copy and you want to read it on your iPad, it's really, and I keep mentioning this, but it's very, very good to understand the Thai forest tradition and specifically how Ajahn Chah both taught the monastic community, how he created environments, monastic environments that lay people could participate in, the ways he taught his lay supporters, his use of language and humor and fierceness, the nature of the Isan people, Northeast Thailand, and their character. So it's very, very informative. And then it also goes into the arrival of various non-Thai monks, Western monks, and then his visit to England. So it's a very, very interesting book on many, many levels. And so this is, I think, my third time going through it. But there was a very, very good précis of the way Luang Por Chah taught. And this particular one is the nuns community at Wat Pho. The nuns are known as Mechis in Thailand. And when I was there, I think there were like 30 women, but we lived very separately. So the monks had really no participation. They had their own chanting, they had their own work projects. So we were quite separately. We shared food, but we didn't eat together. So the food was shared. So we would never get to know the nuns as we do now, say at Amaravati, because our culture is different. But anyway, this is Mechi Bunyo, and she is one of the kind of, I guess, foremost Mechis, nuns from Ajahn Chah's time. Very accomplished and much loved by everyone, praised. So this is just her little brief statement. And when Luang Por Chah, when he came to give a talk, if there were a lot of newly ordained Mechis present, he'd speak on a basic level about not arguing or contending, knowing the meaning of the precepts. On the intermediary level, he'd talk about training to abandon greed, hatred, and delusion, attachment to views and conceit, how to practice once our precepts were purely kept. On the highest level, he'd talk about what you'd see and what you'd experience when you practiced. He talked about the purpose of becoming a nun, about the highest goal of monastic life. He would talk about nibbana and anatta, and there being nothing worth attaching to. Sometimes he might ask an older Mechi, do you know what the state of your mind will be at the point of death? He taught us to know the knowing in the knowing, not the knowing of heat and cold, of pleasure and pain, of day and night, but the knowing in the knowing. So, William, you asked that question last time about consciousness and awareness, I think, and then Malika asked about consciousness. And what I was trying to explain, I don't think I did it very well, but Mechi Bunyo puts it very, very well. He taught us to know the knowing in the knowing. Now, whatever you call that, you can't get there through thought, because thought is an object. So basically, you have to stop and ponder, well, what is that? To know the knowing in the knowing. Not the knowing of heat and cold. And that's what Malika was referring to, the consciousness of things, consciousness of sense experience. And so when I used the word consciousness, that confused her. And so maybe I shouldn't have used that word. not the knowing of heat and cold, of pleasure and pain, of day and night, but the knowing in the knowing. Now, if you try to figure that out with thought, then you can't know it because you're thinking. Your attention is in an object. And why I think this is important because this way of speaking persists in Advaita Vedanta, in Zen, in Dzogchen, in some of the Abrahamic mystical formulations. In Judaism, you find that it's all through these texts, and it's not doctrinal. It's not separative. It's not male or female. But it's very enigmatic. So when we use language, and so I try to play around with consciousness, then people get confused by that. Or so another teacher, like I was just listening to someone talking about this, being the being, knowing presence, mind knowing mind. It's all really pointing to the very, very same thing. But it is, I think the thing about it is it's that, like the Zen analogy of someone is pointing to the moon. Hey, look at the moon, and the person gets caught up in their finger. Where's the moon? I don't see the moon. No, it's a pointer. And language is that. Language is a pointer in this sense. Very, very important. So whatever language I use, excuse me if I mess it up, but what is the deepest aspect of our possibility, I would say, and that to me is something, again, that is an involution rather than a revolution or going outwards. So when I pose, and as I said the last time I was here, I use questions a lot in this way, but they're not to get an answer. They're to get me away from the thinking mind. So when I read Mechi Bunyo, I said, yeah, of course, nice way to put it. Know the knowing. I mean, if you talk to someone who's not into Dharma, they'd say, well, that's gobbledygook. But actually, if you don't get caught up in the language, if you don't go to the dictionary and look up knowing, and is knowing the same as mindfulness and so on, if you don't go that route of analysis and doubt, then your mind strikes silence, doesn't it? I mean, it does for me. It just strikes silence, and then there's nowhere to go. And that's always available. It's always present, and so I find that really lovely to discover that. I had forgotten that Mechi Bunyo said that. But then there's the other two aspects too, the aspect of our lives. And so we're crushed by this information about the Ukraine, and it's horrible. So those are very, very important things: rule of law and taking care of our environments and having education systems which are intelligent and wise and things like that. So they're very, very important. And then our inner life, our emotional life is very, very important, because if we don't get that sorted, pretension, delusion, or our emotional habits and so on, then there's the knowing becomes very difficult, because we're distracted all the time by these strong emotional pulls and confusions, and that goes to thought. So that inner life understanding is also terribly important. But once I would say that once you get a sense, because I think most of us have been doing this work for quite a long time, once you get a sense of knowing the knowing, then actually the upheavals that we get through life stresses, in a way, they're not suffering anymore. They're still unpleasant. But there's, in a way, that's not, because your identity is no longer with the emotional world, with its turmoils and ups and downs. Now, when we misconstrue, I think, Buddhist non-attachment, what we mean by non-attachment, then I think what happens is we still react to emotions with a kind of, why is it that way? Or what we call vibhava tanha, we're trying to get rid of. And that's still engaging, even though it seems a good thing to do, to engage, greed, hatred, delusion, there's still a tendency of, I don't want this. And naturally, who wants it? I don't want this. I don't want this to be here. And that engagement is still attachment. It's not gross attachment. We're not following the negative emotions and doing horrible things. But still, there isn't that sense of, no, it's not about the emotion. It's about knowing the knowing. And that's why I think I return to that theme so often, because it short circuits a lot of the spinning of emotional habits and obsessions. It just goes to another place, knowing the knowing. And I find it very, very effective. And I use language and question to return to that same answer. Having said that, like being a human being, I'll still pick up stresses. So sometimes we'll have like larger issues in our large sangha, which are very, very confusing for me. We're a young sangha, and yet we're sort of bigger and bigger, and so we're having different kinds of issues around different things, and it's natural. Naturally, you have these larger bodies of people and strong-minded people and all the rest of it, and then oftentimes I really don't know what to think, and I do feel confused, and then I don't catastrophize. I've gotten beyond that, fortunately, but I do. I'll go into thinking, and I'll go back. Who's thinking? Then I'll try to ponder and say, what do I really think about this? And that's skillful thinking for me. What do I really think about this? And then there's the unskillful thinking of worry or habitual thought. And I really try to differentiate that. Wait, Viradhammo. Okay, you're worrying now, but what do you think about this problem? What is your perspective on it? And that's very sobering and very helpful. We all do that. But being an unenlightened being, I still have these kind of habits that come into consciousness that they don't take over anymore. Obviously, in general, I'm a pretty happy puppy, but still, these things manifest, and then it's very important to do what we call, it's a horrible phrase actually, maintenance work. I mean, it's too secular for me, but anyway, one has to pay attention to what's going on in the accumulation of stresses in the body, because like if I'm concerned about a larger problem and I really don't know how to, where's this going to go and how I'll respond to that, then that's stress which registers not just through thought, but obviously in the body. And what I've noticed, like in lying meditation, I like to talk about yoga nidra lying meditation, that if my mind is in thought, the body doesn't release any energy. If I let go of thought and come to emptiness and the mind silence, then all of a sudden the body, it's almost like it has permission to release energy. I find that very, very interesting. And I don't know why, but kind of makes sense in an intuitive level. So taking time, like this meditation I suggested to you, you sit down and you just know your belly. Now, that's not a meditation to get anywhere. And anyone who's trying to get somewhere in meditation, then I'm not your guy. You better tune in somewhere else, because I don't personally believe in that. But the capacity to know the body, right, and to allow the body to speak to you, I think is a very important part of a healthy inner life, both physical and emotional, and allow the body to say, this is tension, pay attention to the tension. So for me, at least, the belly, the hara, the whole breathing system, when I allowed the energy just to go down there rather than in thought. Because in thought, it's up here, it's pressure, it's tension, it's, the brain's kind of tense. But if I say, okay, I've been worrying about this issue, and then I won't be thinking about it, but I'll still feel like a kind of overriding angst, not angst, it's too strong, but just like something not right, something not right. That's the body speaking to me, isn't it? I mean, this is common knowledge, but if one's paying attention to the body, then maintenance work or kind of regular checking in is like just allowing the body to speak to you, not going to thought, but not trying to get rid of thought. And the way I do that is just by really just slowly allowing the tension to drain out of the face, to drain out of the shoulders, and come down to the heart. And then I find, oh, wow, look at that. That's being really held very, very strongly. And there's a kind of processing of these stresses and tensions, which if I do it every day, and I do it every day, it doesn't become accumulated. It doesn't become a problem. It's just the way it is. And then the mind has a lot more clarity for insight. It's much more happy. But if I don't do that, and I just get busy, and the busyness is around thought. It's not just about work. It's like, I can work and not be caught up in thinking, or I can work and be caught up with thinking. So if I pay attention to the thinking mind and not make it everything, to actually pay attention to other states of experience, other perceptions, other sense doors. So on this meditation, I'm saying, okay, the thought's there. Now, don't try to get rid of the thought, but just change your perception. That thought's there, and body's here. It's like if I see like something going on there and I'm feeling distracted, I can look at it all the time and feel distracted, or I can turn to the other side and see something which is different. We can do that. We just change our attention. That's not repression. That's not trying to get rid of. It's just mindfulness. And so if you're aware of the patterns of your thinking mind, and they're just obsessing about something, how do you get rid of it? Well, you don't get rid of it, because that just makes it more problematic. But just to run with it also is not going to be good. It's just moving your attention to the body. And so much, as we all know, I know everyone knows this, and one repeats the same thing again and again. But this is a very important thing to constantly try to remember to do, because it becomes a part of your memory system when the mind does become obsessed with something. This is what you do. This is your practice. The practice clicks into place. Huh? So this little meditation of one of millions around the body, but to go to a place where you're disengaging from the thinking mind, not trying to get rid of thought. You're disengaging from the thinking mind. It's very, very healthy. So then in terms of how you approach that body awareness, or how you approach thought, you can see that thought is 99% of the time is producing a sense of self, because 99% of the time the thought's not necessary. Okay, 98. But if you look at the amount of thought that you did, or that was done to you, or whatever way you want to call it, today, how much of it was really necessary and productive? 2.5%, I'll give you max. and so it is a powerful habit. You can't get rid of it, but you can try to use it, to identify the mood of the mind, first of all. So like I'm just talking about a larger issue maybe that I'm worried about. Then this is constant, common Buddhist practice, labeling. Worry feels this way. That's incredibly skillful. It isn't the same as saying I shouldn't worry, or saying to someone else, don't worry. No, it's coming back to mindfulness. And identifying the mood of the mind gets you behind the narrative of the mood. That's very important, very, very important. And it's not trivial. It's not trivial at all, because it begins to give you that perspective, which is not self, whereas the thinking mind is very much a sense of self, and all the problems that I have and I have to deal with. So encouraging that kind of reflection takes an intention, doesn't it? I have to intend to say, okay, my patterns of suffering very much go into fantasizing, very much go into worry, very much go into resentment, very much go into whatever. So to say I've got a worry problem isn't very helpful, because then I worry about my worry problem. So, but if I identify, oh yeah, worry takes up actually 30% of the day. And I realized that, and no matter what this narrative, I realized that, then I make an intention to say, when worry starts to manifest, I'll try to identify it just by naming it. Worry feels this way. Then you're in the ball game. Then you've got mindfulness. Then you can start to play around with it. You can worry deliberately. Oh, the world is coming to an end. The world is coming to an end. I can do that. Or I can shift attention. I can say, who's worrying? I can go back in and say, where's the worrier? But whatever I do, or I can feel the belly, or I can do some yoga, or I can do pranayama, but I can only get in the game once I have mindfulness. And how do I get to mindfulness? I locate in myself where mindfulness is, and that's knowing the mood of the mind. This is the fourth foundation, or the third foundation of mindfulness, is knowing the mood of the mind. Huh? And rather than just running with the narrative of the mind. Again, this is common knowledge, but just to remind you that you don't have to get rid of the habits. That will make it worse, but you do have to awaken to them. So when you wake up to say something like worry, then you can start to think. Know the knowing. No, I know that I know. And that's the shortcut out of these cycles of suffering. But you have to get to the place where you're not trying to get rid of thought or trying to just analyze yourself. Why have I got a worry problem? Because that's more thinking. You have to get to the place of mindfulness and presence, and then trust in that. And if you really trust in that, then you start to say, hey, I'm home again. Look at that. I'm worrying like crazy, but I am home again, because worry is an object. And then from that, you can say, and this is what it feels like to know. Know the knowing. Presence is like this. And that language becomes very, very significant, because it begins to release you from these terribly insidious habits that we have. They're not evil, they're not bad, but they're very difficult to extricate. They're very, very, very difficult. And I think all of us have suffered for maybe millennia, but at least for a few years, of the tendency of trying to sort it all out, make it right, make it good, understand it, analyze it, fix it, everything but awaken to it and say, well, I feel rotten today, or rotten feels like this, or whatever it is, that awakened quality. So this is what Luang Por keeps teaching us, doesn't he? It's like this. And then when you have that, you can reinforce that through some kind of language. I reinforce it through questions. What's it like right now? Or, like, where's the wind? Just simple things like that. And then, knowing, I know that I know. I know that I know. And that always takes me to silence, always. But it's not the silence of annihilating thought. Thought can still come and go. And as I said earlier, then if you start to really see that is the refuge, at least for me, this is how it works for me. I can't say for everyone, but once that confidence comes, you intuitively abide as witness rather than attach as participant. And as you intuitively abide as witness rather than participant in the scenarios that are being run through the thought mind, that whole process becomes not really suffering. It's still blah, 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 maybe. And it does die out into a silence of no thought. But even that's not necessary, because now it's really just stuff. It's just weather. And so I'd ask you to look at when you notice that you're resenting something, or you're worrying about something, you're fantasizing. When you notice that you're thinking, what is your first reaction? Is it one of, oh God, there it is again? Is it one of aversion? Oh no, there I go again. Not mindful, bad monk, that kind of thing. or is it, now's the knowing. Oh, it feels like this, which is a very positive thing, isn't it? When you say to yourself, oh great, I'm back. That's a kind of affirmative, positive thing. Oh, it's like this. Great. As opposed to, oh, you're hopeless. You've been a monk for X years, eons, and you can't even keep your mind quiet, you basket cat. We can go on like that for, you know what I mean, I think. So you can see, if you really trust in awareness, whenever awareness becomes apparent to you, then you should say to yourself, great, I'm back. And that's going to reinforce it in the next moment, and the next moment, next moment. If you don't do that, and you have some idea of controlling your emotions or controlling your thoughts when they come up, and you just have this vibhava tanha, this aversion to it, and you function from that, you just keep thinking, and you won't feel very, very happy about it. So take seriously when Buddhang Saranam Gacchami, what does that really mean as a spiritual principle? And for me, it becomes more and more profound. When I first started as a young monk, and I'd go through the language and the ritual, and it was lovely in some sense, but I didn't think I understood it so profoundly. Not at all, really. I just kind of did it because it was a great thing to do. But the more I live this life, I see that what Buddha really means is that awakened mind, and it can be trusted, and it's to be celebrated. So how do you celebrate worry? That's a bit weird. You can't celebrate worry, but you can celebrate the fact that, wow, I'm here now. And why maybe I'm going on about being positive. It's not just a kind of affirmation thing, like I'm the greatest monk in the world because I woke up. It's not that. It's not egotistical. It's a recognition of something which is very wholesome, and it's the path. This is the path. The awakened mind is the path. And if you have that insight and the trust in that, then the other stuff doesn't become a problem. It's just old habits coming up, because now you know where the path lies, you know what the path is, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. So back to Luang Por Dun's, the mind knowing the mind is the path. The result of the mind knowing the path is the end of suffering. So right there, that is the end of suffering. But of course, the end of suffering to us, well, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be at least a chocolate bar or something. And so it seems like, it's those monks, they're just being very zen. But actually, what is suffering? Is suffering just having a mind which is always placid, pretty, and where you sing Kumbaya all the time? Or is it a mind of non-attachment? No. And what is non-attachment? But I would say the recognition of the awakened mind is non-attachment, that recognition. And then the other, she's very patient. It comes and goes. But now you realize it's not about having a perfectly emotional inner world or responding perfectly to your kids or all of that. Life is just messy. Life is messy. Or that that I'm always going to be able to look at life's problems and be like Ajahn Chah and then solve them brilliantly and never worry. That's a kind of ridiculous ideal. Whereas, we're blood and guts human beings, and we have minds and we have problems. But the refuge that is possible is very close, very close. And I must admit, I'm so encouraged when I read Mechi Bunyu or I see Lubu Dun, or I come across this in the Sufi teachings, or I come across this in Thomas Mertz, and there's so many places where that is. And you realize this is the common insight of all spirituality. It's not doctrinal. When to know, to like some traditions will call that God. And then Buddhists their hair will go up. Well, you can't call that God. We don't have a God. But what does that mean? What does that mean for someone who is from a different tradition? Does that mean that they have daddy in the sky with a big white beard, or now maybe it's not mama in the sky or something like that? It's not. It's got to be much, much more than that. So people who have a theistic way of talking, does that mean they're all stupid? It's like, do we just dismiss them all? You're just God people. We're anatta people, or we're nibbana people. It's just language, isn't it? It's really language. So like when I like to read across religious traditions, especially I've just been reading a book on awakened masters and something, and a couple of powerful women in the Christian tradition, one from the 18th century, one's from the 14th century. And when they talk about their own insights, I say, well, that's the way Ajahn Chah talks. It's no different. Very rigorous lives. So then another, and so I'm not saying that all religions are one, because they're not. And I'm not saying that actually all religions are pointing to that. I don't know what all religions do, but I know that there is a common theme that I thought when I read across literature, not in its doctrinal sense, not as thought, but as actually, that's why I really like to read about enlightened beings. The traditions that say these beings, I like to go, well, so what was your experience? I don't care about your dog. Even a Buddhist, I don't care if you can quote the suttas and what did you actually experience? I want to know. And then I see, yeah, that's the same. Luang Por Liam's talking the same. Luang Por Sumedho's talking the same. And then I come across it in Rumi or someone like that. And this gives me a great sense of joy, especially, again, when I just keep bumping into this different kind of language. So this prevents us becoming doctrinaire and judgmental. You can't read, like, I often think about the Tibetan tradition of 100,000 prostrations. And when my knees couldn't do 10 right now, but 100 with 100,000 mantras and 100,000 visualizations. What's that about? Man, give me the simplicity of Theravada. I'll take that anytime. But I can't know what that does unless I've done it. I can have an opinion. I think, boy, you got great knees, mate. You're amazing. I have no idea what that. And so I have to be humble. I might have an opinion, but I know. In the same way, when someone comes from another tradition, I can see when they're just laying a trip on me, which is dogmatic. So I'm not interested in your dogma. But when someone has a kind of deep questioning mind, like Thomas Merton for me, I say, yeah, okay. You've got a different view of Christianity than I ever understood. So I don't understand Christianity. I don't really understand Tibetan Buddhism because I haven't really done it. And this is important so that we don't become separated into our little isolated religious traditions. And then we see that although there are arguments, you always find there are beings who transcend those arguments. And then that's the people I look to. So sometimes you get arguments about Hinayana and Mahayana and Vajrayana. Who cares? Who cares? When I meet the Dalai Lama, I just love him. And I think, I'll have some of that thinking. I don't care what yana it is. How can I be more like you, right? And then the same with Ajahn Chah when he visits the monastery in Cumbria. And, I think I've told the story many times that the people had this perception that Ajahn Chah was Theravada, hence he was Hinayana, they were Tibetan, and hence he was like a kind of inferior arahant or something, or some. And so he went there and charmed them all, and they loved him because he's a human being, and he's beyond doctrine. He charmed them, and I think the story where he had read about Mahakassapa showing the lotus flower, and someone had told him that this is how Mahakassapa in Mahayana work. So he found himself a flower, showed it to everyone. He said, oh. It was very charming. But you can see that like Luang Por or Luang Por Sumedho, they look at people rather than dogma. Yeah. And so this is where language we get caught. We get caught, we think that the language is really what it's about, but it's the finger pointing to the moon. And that's the idea of reflection, that the use of Theravada Buddhism or whatever tradition, does it make me reflect, or does it just hold me into a belief pattern? And belief is not wrong, but we have to realize what's the difference between belief and insight. So when we talk about like past life karmas and why am I a monk now, you know, and someone says, well, because you were a nice guy in a past life, now you're a monk or something like that. Well, it's reasonable, but I don't know. I have no idea. And that's honest. And you can tell me a really cool story, and I'll say, oh, I like that. Yeah, I'll take that story, just a story. I don't really know, but I know that I know. You know, I know that I know that I don't know. If I can go around in circles like that. I know I have doubt. Doubt feels this way. I know that I worry, that worry is like this. But the refuge is in the knowing, which is not a belief, not a position, not for or against. So even when I have a prejudice in the mind, you know, my mind creates some kind of prejudice. So that's a prejudice. Well, that's a bias. No, it feels that way. And for some, you know, for some reason or something. Oh yeah, that's not truth. That's a perception. Oh yeah, that's a perception. So I keep coming back to knowing the way things are and knowing. And that always leads to freedom. Always leads to freedom. Always is freedom. Okay, Peter, I'll close there.
Luang Por. อันธรรมยังโอวาทกถาสาธุคารังคาดามาเสสาธุสาธุสาธุอนุโมดามิ
All right.
Thank you, Luang Por. Can we invite some questions from the floor, Luang Por?
Yes, this will be fun.
Thank you. So, brothers and sisters, you're now welcome to participate in the questions and answers, or to give any feedback or reactions. Okay. Miri.
Hi, Miri. How's Oz?
Oh, Oz is great. Yeah. It's getting cold though. This is the first morning. It's just been really chilly in Perth.
What's cold?
It's
What's cold?
getting. It's not like your colds. It's probably about, I don't know, 22 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Great.
Get the fur coat out.
It's Luang Por, thanks for the really great talk. But my question is, you referred to a book you're reading about masters from different traditions, and you mentioned a couple of was it Christian female? And so what's the book? I'm really curious. I'd love to know.
Daniel, can you go to my chair? You know, like chronic chair, and there's a book there. Grab that. Give me 5 minutes.
Yes.
So
yes.
We'll get another question, and I'll get back.
Okay.
To you.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Anyone has a question?
Any questions from the floor? No. Okay.
Yes, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Luang Por.
Are you winning?
Pardon me?
Are you winning?
Oh, always. Quick question, Luang Por. When you talked about knowing the knowing, sometimes when in the course of my mind going like a freight train. I turn on itself and I know that I know. But the restlessness energy actually sometimes continues the line of thought. What do you do?
Yes. You have to be very diligent, because it's true. I mean, that's a good image. It's a freight train. And it's got baggage. So that's a very good point, that in the beginning it seems hopeless. I mean, it seems utterly hopeless because it's just so rampantly, persistently in your face. But if you honor that moment of awakening and just say, this is it, then that moment of space in the awakening will become more and more apparent. And as it becomes more and more apparent, you'll abide with that more and more. And just a sec, Aiden, I think he's just lost it. It's by the reclining chair, by the little table. Everyone's going out looking for my book. Oh, he's got it. There you go. That's it. Okay, I'll get back to that. Thank you. Okay, so back to that. So there has to be very strong intention, that rather than like a feeling of hopelessness. So, the freight train takes off, and then, oh, yeah. And then there's the feeling, oh, this is hopeless. Oh, this is what hopeless feels like. You see, so like the feeling of hopelessness, then it becomes a kind of compound. It's the same sense of self. And it's really the freight train is a sense of self, driven by thought. That's the habit. So the moment you awaken, great. And then, oh God, this is so hard. And then in the sense of self arises again. So, oh, this is what hopelessness feels like. You just keep interrupting. And so the intention is very much like weaving or knitting or crocheting or, cutting 1,000 carrots. It's just boring, diligent, persistent awakening. And it's done with strong intention, but it's done with an affirmation that this is it, this is the path, rather than So when you notice that the knowing, then can you make a more affirmative statement to yourself? Great. And then when the freight train takes off, next time you wake up, great. And look at the tendency to think, oh no, this is so hard. Because that's another sense of self, right? So any iteration of the sense of self which you can dismantle is going to open up that space or notice that space more and more. But just have faith that this does work. And you look pretty young. You do it for 20 years, right? What else you got to do? And that perspective is very helpful. Not, if there are any nantagenarians, you can do it too. But is that 90 is a nantagenarian? Yeah. But anyway, if you're 90 years old, you can do it. 80, but really, if you have that perspective, I'm just going to do this. What else is there to do? Rather than, oh, this is hard. Then slowly the awareness dominates. It really begins to dominate rather than the habits of the freight train. Yeah. So just to encourage you that's the right direction.
Luang Por, what is the tipping point when you know it's aversion and not this practice?
It's a kind of inner attitude which you become more and more aware of, which becomes more and more refined. So if you in your meditation, you cultivate the inner attitude of receptivity around sound, around the neutral. Then you cultivate that attitude of receptivity around physical pain and sickness, around the negative, but which isn't the freight train. I mean, the freight train can run on sickness too. So you're developing a receptive attitude to whatever happens. And then that receptive attitude begins to dominate. And you notice the difference between the receptive and averse. You start to feel the difference because you've been in tune with receptivity, with sound, with sickness, with coarseness, with things which aren't too demanding. So maybe you'll have like, you'll be in your home and someone's renovating next door. And they're going, nah, they've got a drill going all day, oh God, shut up. And no. Oh, a version feels this way. And then you become receptive to the sound of the drill. Oh, this is what drill. I mean, you can leave. I'm not saying you have to stay there as a self-torture, but you're using the very sound of the drill now to develop receptivity, because much of life is a drill. Just much of life is just annoying and intrusive, and it seems intrusive. So you're using that kind of very ordinary situation to cultivate, well, what would receptivity be here now? Becoming more objective, you're seeing a version, it would feel like this. Oh, receptivity feels like this. So all the time you're getting better at this. And then you see the difference between receptivity and vibhavatana, or aversion. You get better and better at it. So see it again as like training, like an athlete or a craftsperson, or you get better and better at understanding all these nuances. Okay.
Thank you, Luang Por. That was very helpful.
Great. Okay. Let me, David. Let me go to the book, and I'll get to David. But first of all, Mary, here's the book. And anyone else? It's called Journeys in Lands of Awakening and Sainthood by Michelle Michael.
Journeys in Lands.
Journeys in Lands of Awakening by Michelle Michael.
Okay. Michelle Michael.
And you got that?
Yes,
Take a
yes,
screenshot.
I have. Michelle Michael.
Okay.
I just remember very similar.
And she, there was a man called, what's his name? Well, his last name was Michael because she married him, Edward Salim Michael. And he wrote a book on the sound of silence, Nada Yoga. And the name of it was changed. I forget the original name, but Luang Por Sumedho was really taken by that book. And Salim Michael was fiercely, in a very good way, dedicated to understanding himself and used the sound of silence. And so she eventually, and he was not literate, but he was a brilliant man. And then she eventually became his mentor and then married him eventually and helped him to write that book and another book. And then she went through the literature and found these different saints, and some of them are, some of the Christian stuff I found, it sounded a bit like self-mortification to me. But then I just tried to hold back my own judgment of that. I said, okay, yeah, what's the result? And read the results. So I found it, but that's the kind of stuff I love, and you do too. I mean, you. So Sri Ramana is in this, and Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, the Tibetan nun that lived in the mountain, in the cave for 10 years. And there's a woman who was Gerta Ital, who was into Soto Zen, I think, in the Korean tradition. Ayakema is in this. And then there's some swamis who I didn't know, and some Christian priests who became swamis in India. Great read. This is, I love that stuff. Some people find it a bit over the top, but then I'm in the business. So, because I'm really curious to see, beings who have worked very hard, what is the statement they have? Not just the statement from their doctrinal position, but, how do they express truth? And how do they portray their reality? And I know you have a love of that too. And then that is very reflective for me. I say, well, where is that in my head? Especially like theistic talk, whether it's Ishvara in India, or it's God in Christianity, or Allah in Islam, rather than reject that. I mean, I would reject just dualism and some kind of patriarchal thing, but I think all traditions have deeply mystical aspects to them. Certainly, I feel that. And so then I'm always curious, oh, okay, he's from that tradition, she's from that tradition. How do they say it? And what do they say? And that's very stimulating to see, well, do I agree with that? Does that make sense to me? Not doctrinal, but experientially. And then if I don't agree with that, I say, well, why? What is it about my view that doesn't correspond with her view? And that makes me question myself rather than say, well, she's wrong. I'm a Buddhist or something like that. I say, no, she's got something. Where's my disagreement? Maybe that helps me clarify something in my own mind or whatever. And so I find that very helpful to understand myself, the way I use language, the positive or negative ways I use language, and so on. So, and I don't get a cut from this from Amazon. I don't get any profits. Okay? Okay. There you go, David. Mute.
Mute.
There you go.
Hi, Ajahn. It's been many years since I've seen you. I used to participate in your Toronto group.
Yeah, I know your face. Yes.
I was married to Connie, who you supported for a long time, who had breast cancer.
That's right. Yes. Okay. Right.
16 years ago, I moved to Halifax, so we lost touch. But I've rediscovered you through Instagram.
Here we are. Instagram, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I also had a chance to visit with Curtis last summer, but I didn't get a chance to see him then. Anyways, I'm glad
it all comes back. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay.
I'm glad to find you again because I don't have a sangha here in Halifax. And I've been out of touch with the Buddhist practice, but
I'll be in Halifax in August.
Is that right?
Oh.
So give me your address.
Okay.
And we can share a coffee or something.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I'd love to catch up with you. In the meantime, this is Glenda, my current wife.
Hi, Glenda.
And she's got a question for you.
I'll try to be quick. When you were talking about worrying, it really obviously struck a chord. And you were saying something about, maybe we have worry thoughts, maybe, who knows, this, maybe 30% of the day or more. And it would be quite something if I was actually to track it, because it might even be more than that for me. But then I'm curious about what's the good intention of worrying? Like, as human beings, we seem to be built to worry. And so it's like, I'm curious about that.
Well, there's probably some biological advantage to fear, right? So the sparrowhawk comes flying through here every now and then and grabs a chickadee or a squirrel. So the squirrels that are more afraid escape the sparrowhawk, I suppose, something like that, and predicting the future, which is unpredictable. So, there's a lot in us which is biologically driven, and yet we are not just biological beings. We have this capacity for awareness. So we have to, like let's say I'm a celibate monk, and I'm older now, but as a young monk, there was plenty of lustful thoughts and lustful energy, which I had to be aware of. And that's a natural impulse. There's nothing wrong with it. And I could be aware of it. It was unpleasant in that sense, but I could be aware of it. And so being able to be aware of natural impulses and the driving force of thought within those natural impulses as natural phenomena, but not being the victim to that, not only being driven by that, seeing that there is something bigger than the forces of nature, the biological forces of nature, and that's awareness. And once I get a hold of that, then I see, well, that's actually much more pleasant. Now, like worry is obviously unpleasant, but the thing about worry is that it takes you away from fear. It doesn't resolve fear. It just puts fear in the background and gets you into kind of surface attention, which distracts fear. So if you want to be free from worry, you have to go to fear. And the trouble about fear is it could be true. Whatever you're worried about, it could happen, right? The worst possibilities could happen. Statistically, they probably won't, but statistics doesn't cover that they might. And so if worry is like really, like sometimes worry is just something that you have to think about because you're not really sure what the truth is for you. So there's that. But there's also that which is driven by fear. And so that part, I mean, there's many ways to do it, but a lot of it is body awareness. And they say, well, is this fear? You know, do I have fear? Like to recognize fear in your body, first of all. Fear for me is a gut-heart thing, but it also manifests as tension in the head. So over time, I've experienced fear, and I've understood it not just as an emotional phenomenon, but also as a physiological phenomenon. So I know fear in that sense. So if my worries are not just sort of analytical problems that I have to deal with, but they're also now have a component of fear, I know that in the body. And as the mind starts to rev that up, I can see, where's this in the body? So I'm not rejecting the fear, but I am awakening to it. And I'm saying, where is that? Where's that in the body? And maybe in the beginning, I don't notice it, right? But I just sit down and, wow, look at that. My belly's really tight, or my heart's really, really tight, or I'm clenching my hands. Look at that, or whatever. Oh, yeah. So I get a better awareness of what worry is. I still have the problem to deal with. Now I've got a way of actually identifying worry as a physiological thing, and that takes me to witnessing. And as I witness worry now as a physiological phenomena, its power over me lessens because I'm not caught in the thinking, right? And that's, again, I think that's common knowledge, but it is an arduous kind of practice you have to do to remember. You know, it's a cliche, remember the body, huh? But actually it's true. It's true. So what you can do is, in your whatever lifestyle you have, program your mind to say, when I notice that there's worry, I'll just try to just notice what my body's feeling like. I won't try to solve the worry, fix it. I'll just see where my body's at. So you start to give the mind, awareness functions from intention. If I can put into the mind strong intentions of awakening, that helps awareness to be more dominant. So if the thing that preoccupies my mind is worry, then I make an intention to awaken to worry, rather than the usual thing, oh, you worry too much, I should stop worrying. I really have a worry problem. I really must do something. And you're worrying again. You're back there. So then you say, no, it's awakening that's important. It's not getting rid of the worry. So that intention, okay, when worry comes up, I'll notice my belly, whatever, or just notice worry. Oh, worry's like this. Oh, I'm worrying, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, worry's like this. And so awareness starts to have more power. And the habit of worry starts to be seen as an object rather than you being the subject. The problem is the subjective. It's the narrative, it's the storyline, it's the me and mine, aham krami mankara, I making, my making. And that's not to be dismissed as trivial. If someone's worrying and you say to them, don't worry, oh, thanks, you just feel guilty then. But if you say to them, what does worry feel like? What do you mean, what does it feel like? It feels horrible. No. Like, is your face tense? I don't know. Well, or your belly, then you're really helping them to awaken to worry. So in a sense, you're doing that for yourself. You're saying to yourself, rather than, oh, what am I going to do? Or you're worried too much, to say, well, no. What is worry? How does it feel? So you're coaching yourself, or you're informing yourself like a good friend about this habit of worry. And then it's an education rather than eradication. It's like we don't do toxic practices of eradication. It's education. So you learn about the obsessions of the mind. So you learn about worry. Okay, you make your project. This year, 2022, I'm going to study worry. If it's 30% of the time, worthy of study. And then that attitude begins to really, really help. You study it as a body phenomena. You see it as a mood of the mind. And more you become witnessing, aware. And then the insights arise on how you can be more skillful with it and more patient with it, or whatever. So rather than it being your enemy, it becomes your friend, in the sense that if you're claiming more than 30%, we'll give you 45%. Okay. If 45% of your time is worry, then if you understand worry, that's 45% of your work done. Beautiful, right? Vice versa, if you don't attend to it, it's going to be 60% soon. So, you better get on it.
That's my project for 2022. Thanks.
There you go. Maybe for many of us.
Yeah.
But really, you're creating a mind of that wants to understand. It's a mind of education rather than this hopeless thing called worry.
That was incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Okay,
so
great. So maybe we'll see you in David.
Yeah,
Send me an email.
Yeah, I'll send you an email with my address and phone number and everything. You have a place to
Great.
stay?
Yeah, it all comes back to me now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while, 16 years.
We got very close with Connie's passing. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
nice.
We had some private sessions, and you were very helpful to her. And
yeah,
and also
nice to see you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, there we go. You got a book?
Yes,
Anyone else?
Anyone else with questions?
Going once, going twice. Vivian, any questions?
Yes.
Claire, there we go. Hello, Claire.
Hi.
There you go.
Hi. My question is, what if you're aware of an emotion, your mind doesn't want to let it go because the alternative is worse to this mind? So specifically, say anger. I'm aware of anger, but I don't want to stop identifying with it, because if I let that go, I guess what I would be feeling is powerlessness, sadness, grief, or whatever it is.
Well, then stay with anger until you get sick of it.
Well,
true, isn't it? At some point you're going to say,
okay.
How much longer? Basically, do you want to get out of suffering? Right? You do. We're all geared to get out of suffering because we want to be happy. So then, if you use the Four Noble Truths, right, and you try to go to, well, what do I want? Where's the wanting in this anger? And you try to get it as a kind of visceral thing. That's where you have to, like for me, my great lesson was around fear. And the fear was something that I was afraid of. I was afraid of fear. And it was horrible. I had panic attacks and all kinds of horrible for many years. And so it took me a long time by using Four Noble Truths, when fear arose, I said, what's the problem here? Well, it's the fear, isn't it? And the problem was not the fear, it was my aversion to fear. It was not wanting the fear. Once I had that insight, then I could let fear into consciousness. Now, I don't know what the pattern for anger for you is, but that's how we try to use the Four Noble Truths. So when anger arises for you, say, and rather than take this other position that if I don't have the anger, all the other, rather than make that conclusion, can you just, when it comes up, say, well, where's the wanting in this? I want the other person. What is the wanting? Because it's not just about the anger, it's the want, there's a whole structure wanting around wanting to be something, not wanting something, it can be very complicated. So I don't know, I can't quite relate to what you're saying, but I can relate to my own problem, which was, it wasn't the fear, it was the desire not to have the fear. So you're telling me that there's a desire that if you let go of the fear, then there'd be this other possibility. Can you look at that desire? What is that desire? Can you go right to that desire? And that's what I had to do with fear, because the fear was one thing, but the desire was another thing. And once I began to separate them, so maybe, and I'm just kind of running it with you, right? Maybe that anger is there, and then you have this idea, oh, I don't want that because of this. If I let go of the anger, then that's where the desire will be. And can you just say, what is that? Just like, what is it? What is that like? Where is that? Don't try to analyze it, because that won't take you there. Thought won't take you there. It's silent attention. So it becomes your education, right? And that's intelligent. That's how you use intelligence. And so you just kind of, it's not even a meditation, is it? It's just like, it starts to come up and say, okay, there it is. And there it is. Well, what do I want here? And that's a really, really good questioning. And then sometimes you don't see it. Another person can, might identify. Like for me, with my fear, such as Sinead saw right away. He said, just let go. Oh, good luck. And but he said, welcome the fear. What do you mean welcome? And now it's trivial for me, that understanding. But then it was profound, because I was so invested in not knowing the fear and pushing it away, and so on. So you have some kind of structures now which are bringing forth this complex problem. You have to understand those structures. You'd be like a scientist, right? And or whatever, or you're an auditor doing auditing your brain or something like that. But you're just looking. Okay, where's that? So it's not just you having a problem. You're trying to get to the kind of objective viewpoint. Okay, this is what the mind is doing. How does it do it? So you become the witness, the scientist, the observer, and from that the problem starts to unravel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, to inquire what's beneath that, beyond what the existing conclusion.
What your conclusions are. Yeah.
Right.
And that's silent attention. That's not analytical. Because those conclusions that we come to with thought really are often cultural or whatever, they're assumptions. You have to just wait for the problem to present itself so that you can see it.
Thank you.
Okay, Claire. Mudita. How are you? Are you still at the retreat center?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Are you still at the retreat center?
Yeah, I am doing some hours there. We've just started up this month, actually, with more groups. So during that last shutdown in the early part of this year, or the government shutdown, we had to shut down as well.
Yeah, that's very difficult.
Yeah.
So what's your question? What's your question for us?
Yeah, the question is also about anger. So I'm I can recognize it quite well. The concern or the challenge, I guess, that I have is when when I'm on my own, I can watch it. So if I'm at home, or if I'm going for a walk or whatever, when I'm just by myself, I can watch it. and deal with it and sort of, work towards letting go of it. When I'm with other people, so when I do have to be with other people, then it's challenging because I don't want to react out of anger toward them, but it comes up so quickly that I find it difficult to sometimes not react out of anger. So I'm wondering about skillful means to sort of get in between the arising of it and the spewing out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's a very strong karma you're working with. So your intentions are beautiful, they're perfect. But this is such strong karma that it just overwhelms awareness. And that's not your fault, right? It's just the horribleness of the way it is right now. So I think like what's very good is just like reading some simple exposition of right speech. Just kind of, like some in the suttas, there's some expansion on right speech. Take some of that and just read it every morning. This is right speech which is in concord, speech which is truthful, which isn't like saying I have to speak rightly, but it's just a kind of very, very gentle reminder in consciousness of what speech is about. And that really helps with the arising of anger because you've put this intention to practice right speech and you want to get all the reminders you can around spewing it out, right? And if it overwhelms you, then you have to go obviously you have to do mea culpa. I apologize. And as much as possible, tell people, I'm trying. I'm really trying my best. So that's very helpful because then people know, okay, this is a decent person. This person isn't just doing it in some kind of ill-mannered way. So those are social negotiations which can be very fruitful, but can be very, very difficult. And then when you get back to your safe spot, then you have to look at the self-aversion that comes up, and because that's usually the pattern, right? Self-aversion or whatever, and get a hold of that self-aversion. Say, may I be free from suffering. I mean, that we've talked about this, but just that same reminder that any amount of compassion which you can put into the mind is going to be the counter to anger. So even though you blow it, even though you tell your boss he's a turkey or whatever you do, and go back to your space, and then the mind says, oh, you blew it again, and I say, wow, I'm really suffering. May I be free from suffering. And so you just keep putting as much compassion into this as you possibly can. And the mind will run on, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. Wow, this is really painful. This is so painful. May I be free from suffering. So you just, in whatever way language works for you, then in stream of consciousness, obviously what's going into it is kindness and compassion in whatever moments it's allowed. And in those moments where the karma is too strong, all right, you start again. I mean, it's so frustrating, and I know you work very hard, and that's it. Also, remember, you do work hard on this. This isn't like you're not frivolous. You're really diligent, and that sometimes is a reminder we don't give to ourselves, because when we make a mistake, it's not really a mistake. When the karma is so strong, we just get heavy on ourselves. But then you kind of think back, well, I'm actually trying like heck. I mean, I do all kinds of practices. So then you mean, yeah, this is stronger than me in this moment. This is some kind of vipaka kamma coming up. May I be free? That kind of thing. So all the suggestions are ones of protection and kindness and that. And then when the anger comes up, if you can get out of the room, great. If you can go and yell at a chipmunk, great. or something like that. Chipmunks can handle it. They won't take it personally. But, realize it's a profound practice you're doing. So keep that kind of encouragement Now, when I said know the knowing, you can relate to that too.
Yeah.
That's quite often the shortcut.
Okay.
You know, the shortcut from the volume of stuff, you go back to that emptiness to know the knowing. But that's not being disassociated. You know, that's in the midst of the turmoil.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. But you can spread metta to the chipmunks too.
I'll do both. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Right. Oh,
Okay, Bita, shall we call it quits?
yes, I think we should have a lovely closing tonight. And with the chant of the Buddha's words on loving kindness, Luang Por?
Okay. Who's going to lead? Shanxian, or should we lead?
Yes, please. May we invite
Lead,
the
okay.
to lead. Thanks.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later improve, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as the mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Right.
Thank you, Luang Por.
Okay,
Let's all pay our respects to Luang Por with 3 bows. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Thank you, Luang Por.
Hey, David, see you in Halifax. Brenda. Okay, bye, everyone. See you next time.